You know, Frankie, I understand you're upset that I'm no longer a member of the family because my sim has been in a Pixel 6a for a couple weeks, but you're gonna make it up to me by buying a 1TB iPhone 14 Pro Max? No, but I did think I would pick up an iPad at least and maybe record and edit a few videos using that. I don't know, I'd really rather not look at you while you're a green bubble. That would make me feel better, but I do appreciate that you bought an iPad and you're keeping it, right? No. Then why would you even offer that? Huh. We'll get him back someday. So it's been a couple weeks now since my sim has been in the Pixel 6a. My first time reviewing an Android phone for a while, and I have to say it has been an absolute delight. Yes, a lot of what they say about Pixel phones... Yes, a lot of what they say about Pixel phones is absolutely true. Even as an Apple sheep, I'm willing to admit a few things that a lot of people get right about Pixels. And that, for one, is that they have incredible cameras. And I'm not just talking within the tech community, I mean outside of the tech community. I've been taking lots more pictures ever since I got this phone because every time I take a picture and show it to someone, even just a family member, they're always like, wow, okay, that's a really, really nice picture. Like, it's just overall impressive to everyday people, even if sometimes it feels a little overly processed or sometimes a tad artificial, even though it may look a little bit edited and sometimes people think I'm using a filter. Most of the time they still prefer the filter. They're like, yeah, it still looks great overall. And to have a camera this capable on a phone that I picked up from Amazon Renewed for $200, yeah, it's hard to complain when you've got a camera this good. Same thing with the display. Sure, it's only 60 hertz, and these days you can buy more expensive phones that go up to 90, 120 hertz, but coming from an iPhone SE2, this was perfectly adequate. In fact, more than I needed because it's a massive 6.1-inch display with the built-in fingerprint reader. A lot of people complained about this fingerprint reader, but I guess maybe because it's only $200 and because I'm coming from an iPhone SE, I didn't mind it at all. I found it fast, reliable, didn't have a lot of false reads or anything, and to have a display this large and this bright for the price, I'm honestly super duper impressed with. And for a moment, can we just appreciate the Pixel design language for a minute? I know a lot of you guys watching this channel just expect me, because I'm the Apple sheep, to rant on anything with the Pixel logo, but the truth is I really only rant about things that I think are rant worthy. I can't just rant about anything, and maybe some of you guys were watching this channel because you thought, well, Drew just rants about nothing and I want to see him rant for no reason, but genuinely that's not where the Apple sheep rants came from. They came from true, genuine frustration, and we don't have that same experience here. So I can't justify ranting about it because I gotta admit, I really love this design language. It's kind of pointing to the idea that all iPhones and Androids are blurring into the same hardware because it's got kind of flat edges to the chassis, but they're also a little bit rounded, especially with the glass on the back, which feels very comfortable in the hand. Although I am confused, like the Pixel 6a doesn't have wireless charging, but they still chose to use this kind of glass plasticky back, which you really didn't need it to be this glossy fingerprint magnet. If there's no wireless charging, they could have just gone with more of a matte finish or even an aluminum back, which probably would have felt more premium. But even so, it feels super comfortable in the hand. And as I've been saying for almost a year now, I really want Apple to copy this camera bump design. It allows you to not make the lenses go deeper into where MagSafe needs to go, and it basically eliminates the wobble when you set the Pixel down on a desk. Although for some reason, this still has a little bit of wobble on one corner. It's very slight, and other people have told me that with the higher end Pixel 6 and 6 Pro, they don't experience any wobble, so I'm gonna say maybe it's just something a little bit off with the 6a because the camera bump is so thin, but having it be parallel with the top and bottom lines of the phone, I think is a genius idea because you've got plenty of room for lenses now. Long term, I think you'll be able to pack more and more great camera hardware in this thing without having to intrude on where that MagSafe ring goes, which we know in time Androids are gonna start accommodating for this because the Qi 2 wireless charging standard includes those MagSafe rings, so it's a great back design. And also the Google logo is centered in the proper place. It's just a very minimal, clean looking phone, very functional. The bezels are relatively thin, although not as symmetrical all the way around as an iPhone is. But as someone who remembers how hard it was to get phones with full screen displays not too long ago, I'm still just genuinely impressed by how full screen and how capable a camera you can get with custom silicon made by Google and all of this for like $200. This is just a great deal. Of course, as well, something we're all hoping for on the iPhone, but it's something we're all hoping for on the iPhone that has been on Android for years, USB-C. Yes, it supports fast charging, and even though Google did not include a charge brick with the Pixel 6a, the one I got from Amazon Renewed came with a charge brick. Not a super fast one, but still, it's kind of nice that there's perks to going used in some ways. The speakers on it I've also been decently impressed with, and it's kind of hard for me to find anything really to complain about with this phone, but I'll try because I know we've got a lot of Apple sheep watching. So for one, I do think the aspect ratio, and this is a problem pretty much with all Androids, it goes a little bit taller than I'm used to, and this kind of ties into my slight complaints about the software, like the fact that everything, including your settings and your notifications, has to be accessed from the top. Well, when you make a phone this tall, you have to reach pretty far to be able to drag all that stuff down, and I guess they kind of make it easier by letting you just pull down from anywhere on the home screen, but there's a lot of apps that are not optimized for just trying to access quick actions at the bottom of the menu bar, like Twitter. I have to tap icons at the top of the screen all the time to switch my accounts, and I've actually gotten really accustomed to Safari on my iPhone because they put the URL. I've actually gotten really accustomed to the new Safari design on my iPhone where the search bar and the URL and everything are at the bottom. Much easier for your thumb to reach compared to this. Now with this tall aspect ratio, search bar and everything is really, really high off the ground. The search bar and everything is really, really high up there, so you kind of have to stretch a lot. And also, maybe this is just the Apple sheep side of me talking, but the corners feel a little bit sharper than they need to be. I wouldn't mind if this was a tad more rounded off, but maybe Google's trying to stand out and look a little bit more unique than the iPhone, so they intentionally make it a bit pointier on the corners. That's fine if that's their choice. But I do want to give Google credit for the stock Android experience, because it has been nice now that I've experienced what it's like to have a third-party Android phone with an Android skin on top of it. Bloatware gets really annoying when you've got 2 clock apps and 2 messaging apps and 2 photo libraries, and the fact that you can just unbox this and it just has all of your default Google apps built in, yes, that's really, really sweet, especially if you're like me and you're using a bunch of Google services already. I use Google Drive, I use Gmail, I use Google Photos, I use YouTube Music and YouTube, and I'm a content creator, so of course I use Creator Studio, and so much of that stuff was already installed, so I just had to sign into one email account and boom, this phone practically already knew me within just a minute of setting it up. And that's why I tend to lean towards, like, if I want to try out an Android phone, I really want to check out a Pixel because I know it's the first party experience. They own Android and they're controlling the hardware and now the silicon, so you feel like if you have to step outside the Apple sheep walled garden, then you're gonna find the closest idea to a singular vision, like one company saying how the UI should work and everything. But I still can't say, going back to Android, it's made me like it more than iOS by any means, because yeah, iOS still just has this fluidity and this responsiveness where I've seen you guys describe it as the user interface feels more alive, whereas the Android experience feels more stuttery, and part of that could be on third-party developers. It's totally not completely just Google's fault, but I've heard people say a lot of the time that because Android is more popular on lower-end devices that are less powerful, third-party developers will sometimes optimize apps to run in a more light, less processor-intensive way so that it fits better across the thousands of Android devices that are likely going to run that app. Whereas when you only have like a dozen iPhones to optimize for, you have a lot more processors to choose from, so the developers may put in a bit more graphic-intensive animations or a bit more options. Like for me in particular, I use GoDaddy Studio a lot to make my video thumbnails. Not a sponsor, by the way, and I hate that name. I wish they would just leave it as Over. But they have pretty much gotten rid of the option in GoDaddy Studio on Android for you to copy a layer and paste it in another project. On iOS, they make that really easy, but on Android, it's just not there at all. And a lot of the animations for video editing and a lot of the animations for photo editing are a lot more basic, and they don't go into as much detail as the iOS version. Plus, I'm used to having subject lift now on my iPhone SE2, so that definitely felt weird to not have on my Android. But I am happy to report a vast majority of my thumbnails over the past couple weeks have been made right off the Pixel 6a. So even though it kind of broke up my Apple ecosystem, now my continuity camera and iMessage stopped working and everything, it still was able to help me get some work done. And I'm very impressed with not only the picture quality, but the video quality as well. You know, a $200 phone that, by the way, came with a 98% battery health. so not that old, was able to record 4K at 60 really strong, and even the audio was pretty decent on it. Check it out. This is a test of the rear-facing video on the Pixel 6a, 4K at 60. Of course, and how it sounds as well. I don't see a rear-mounted microphone, so I'm guessing it sounds better at the front versus when I point it at me like this, which is obviously going to have the better sound quality, but not bad for like a $200 phone, right? And unlike the iPhone SE2, this one actually has 5G compatibility if you care about that type of thing. So I would have to say this has been an overall very pleasant experience. No, it doesn't make me want to ditch my iPhone per se, because I think this is definitely more of a media consumption enjoyment device, more so than it is an Apple sheep like YouTube channel tool, which the iPhone SE2 helps me out a lot more in that manner because I have so much Apple hardware already. But for people that are already outside of the Apple ecosystem and have been using an Android phone for 4 or 5 years and you're wanting to upgrade, this is not a bad deal at all, because Pixel is promising 5 years at least of security updates, and this is only a year old. So $200 phone with this great a camera, this great a display, all day battery life for me. I've seen a lot of people complain about batteries, but I guess have been living with an iPhone SE2 with a 78% battery health. So to me, this battery life was a huge upgrade. And if you're comfortable and fluent with Android, I honestly think this is one of the harder deals to beat. But if the hardware's not quite enough for you, I highly recommend you check out a Pixel 6, just regular one, or a Pixel 6 Pro from eBay refurbished. You can find them for under $300 and they're just an incredible bargain. So good on you, Pixel. You've really turned around the Apple sheep here. Also, I'm kind of grateful that there's no ringer switch, because I don't really use the ringer switch on my iPhone. But I will admit, I kind of prefer having the power and the volume buttons on opposite ends. It kind of gets confusing sometimes to have them in one place, but you can get used to it. It's not the end of the world. What do you guys think of the Pixel 6a? Is there a better budget Android option in your opinion out there? Feel free to let me know down in the comments below. And thank you to everybody supporting this channel directly. Seriously, helps us out a ton, as does just watching these videos. So thanks again. This is your Apple Sheep here, and I'll see you all in the next one.